Hi developers, today we will learn how to debug .NET application with Visual Studio so that we can come out with a software that is free of bugs. So I have here a sample .NET application written in C#. So here I have an employee that have a first name Muhammad. Then here I go and change his last name from Ali to Hamza. Here I want to make sure that this change was done successfully. So what you typically do is you go and write the value, that last name of the employee, to the debug write line. So you go to start. Then the value written in that in the debug object will be shown inside the output window here. So you see here the new value of the last name of the first employee, which is now Hamza. So you find this output window inside the view. So here you get it, the output window, and here you should set it to show the values of the debug. So this is the old way, or the old fashioned. Now Visual Studio come with a better solution for this situation. Here, instead of writing the values inside the debug, I can go and do a better work with a better solution. So here I don't need the debug object, but I can go and set a breakpoint at the line of code that I want to check. So here it's right before that line containing the last name of that employee. So I set a breakpoint here in this gray space here. I set that breakpoint that will be colored in red. Then here what the breakpoint does is that when I hit start on my project, here you see that the breakpoint is hidden, and here I have a yellow arrow. This is to say that now my application is running this line of code. Now it will run this line of code. So here it's like I have stopped my program right to this line of code. So here I have the employee object created with properties set to the first name, last name, and date of birth. Now my program will execute this line of code. So now I have my employee one created. And what I can do with this breakpoint is that I can put the cursor on top of my object, and here you see I can get the information about the employee one. So you get here its type, and I can click here to see the values of my first employee as created or as instantiated before. So here it have the first name Muhammad and last name Ali with that date of birth specified. So this is a cool feature in Visual Studio, but here you see that the last name is Muhammad instead of Hamza. So you see here that in this line of code I'm changing the last name to Hamza instead of Ali, but here I'm still getting the value of Ali. Why is that? That's because Visual Studio have stopped it right before this line of code. It didn't yet executed this line of code, so I'll go and execute that line of code by hitting F11 to say step over, or it's actually step into. So by hitting F11, I go to the next line of code. You see here that a yellow arrow have gone from this line of code to the next line of code. So now here I'm sure that this line of code was executed. So now if I go and check again the value of that last name that was Ali, now it's Hamza. So as you see here, it gets the new value, it's Hamza. So I can do that without going to the debug in order to display that value inside the debug window or inside the output window in Visual Studio. I can do that here without adding some new lines of code, because here developers add those code and sometimes they forget to remove these in the production code. So this is a very better way and more interactive way to debug the application, to view, to let's say to see the value of the variables. And here I'll go again and press F11, and you see here I have a method called method call. If I go and press F11, I'll go inside that method. So you see here that right arrow now is going to execute the lines of code of that method. F11 again will go to the first line, and again I can see the value of the variables. Here I by default gets 0 because this line of code is not yet executed. Clicking F11 another time will execute that line of code. For that, now I can get the value of I to be set to 5 instead of 0. F11 again, and here you see if I press F11, then I go back to that to where that method is called, and now F11 will let's say continue the execution of the code. Some of the other cool features is that I can go back to the execution. So let's say I want to go back and execute the method call again. So I can do that by replacing the yellow arrow here. So you see I can go back to my method call, or I can go back to the previous line of code and execute those line of codes again. So here I can go even whether before the lines of code or go and skip some lines of code. So I'm free here to go to the line of code I want to execute. So here let's go back, for example, to the method call, but here I don't want to go inside the method call. So what I can do here, I can go and press not F11, which will go inside that method, but I can press F10 to step over. So here if I press step, so by pressing F10, then I can, you see here it doesn't go inside that method call, but instead it skips it going inside that method and goes directly to the next line of code. So here let's say here I have a second employee that have first name Ahmed. So as you see here, his first name is Ahmed. Now with this debug options, I can change that name. So let's say here I can go to that employee and change his name right here without stopping the execution and adding the line of code that will change the first name of this employee. So I can do that right from here without stopping my code and re-executing again. So I can change the name from Ahmed to be Marwan, for example. After doing that, I hit enter. Then now my second employee is called Marwan instead of Ahmed. So this is a very cool feature inside Visual Studio that helps developers debugging or testing their variables with different values. Now let's go and see some other new cool features. So here I have a list of employees. If I hit on that, put the cursor on top of that variable employees, then I get here the list of employees, so the employee at the index 0 and the employee at index 1. Here I should go inside that indexed number 0 and to get the values of that employee, and the same thing for the index 1 to get the values of that employee. Here I can do personalization of this, how Visual Studio shows these values of the employee. So what I'm gonna do here is to show the first name, last name, and date of birth right here without going deeper to each value of that list in order to be able to see these values. So how can we customize the way Visual Studio shows these values inside this debug window? So we can do that by going to our employee object, which I have it here, and here I can add an attribute called DebuggerDisplay. You find this attribute inside the system.diagnostics namespace, and inside the DebuggerDisplay can go here to tell Visual Studio how I want to display the employee object. So I use these brackets, and inside of these brackets I get IntelliSense to tell me which value I want to show the first. So I'll set last name, then I choose to show the last name, or here it should be the first name first. So first name, then I show the last name, and they can add 2 points, then I go and show the date of birth. So and each time Visual Studio will show me the employee, and each time I put the cursor on top of the employee object, I'll get the values shown right from there. So let's see it in action. Let's hit start. So if I go on top of the employee object, so you see here that now Visual Studio is showing the values of the first name, last name, and the date of birth right from here. So I don't need to go inside the these values here to be able to see the that list of employees. So this is very useful when you have a list of employees. So let's set a breakpoint here so that I can go to this list of employees quickly. So I can move from this line of code right to this line of code quickly by not going step by step to each line of code by doing F11. So I don't want to go step by step for each line of code of my apps. Instead of that, I'll go and hit this breakpoint. And now if I click F5, then it will go straight to this line of code where I have the next breakpoint. So it's like going to the next breakpoint. So now if I put the cursor on top of my employees, then I get that I have 2 employees. Open this arrow, now you see all my employees list are displayed in this way, which is more useful than going for each employee and view its values by using this this option here.